Right, it's Wednesday, June 11th. This is a morning SPY update and basically also a morning update of the type of trading that unfolded today, at least from the way I look at price structure. So on the SPY, first of all, you can see here that, first of all, we're in a big uptrend overall. You know, you kind of know that, but it's also a little bit exhaustion risk day after day because we're making new high, new high, new high, new high, new high, new high, new high. So, you know, at any moment you could have a pullback. It could be sharp, it could be shallow, but, you know, also the trend is still up. So it becomes a little tricky because there's no real actionable signals, and therefore there could be some opportunities both ways, at least on the day time frame. And you can see today, you know, it was another day where we gapped up a little bit above the midpoint of the prior day. We had a little bit of a red to green opening here, and that green move took you to the high, you know, took out the first bar high as you expected. And then, you know, it didn't want to follow through it for about an hour. It didn't really want to go much higher than that, decided to come down, take out some liquidity of the intraday lows, but still hold above the midpoint of the prior day. Then it reversed back up, and now you can see midday we're kind of having another red bar and we're chopping around in here. So that's kind of the context of the SPY. It's not real exciting, you know, to trade this. There are still targets to head higher. If I look at the weekly chart as we stay green, you know, we're still working towards those highs, still proven otherwise. But it becomes tricky when it becomes grinding higher day after day without real and actionable signal in the short run. So anyway, that's the SPY, you know, and the buys are still up, but, you know, wouldn't be surprised, you know, it's not surprising when it comes down and takes out liquidity. So, you know, that's kind of what's unfolding there. But to me, what's interesting today, if I look at all the different stocks that I try to track at one time, and that's what I'm always doing. Today for me, I traded, as described in a lot of the videos, I traded some Apple, I traded CrowdStrike, Meta, Netflix. There was a QQQ trade, a put trade I made briefly, and then I ended up with Tesla here. You know, so there was a whole bunch of stocks I'm looking, and I just thought it would be interesting to point out how each one of them had a unique chart pattern, you know, within this overall environment. So Netflix, which was one of them, that was strong right out of the gates, and I had a nice morning trade to the upside there. Same thing with CrowdStrike. You can see these had the strong 15-minute openings and then followed through higher for a nice morning trade to the upside. Whereas Apple, you know, if you look at the opening price action, that continued lower, and there was a good put trade in the morning to the downside. So there's the kind of the mixed market reviews. And then you had a couple of opportunities the way I saw it. Meta here, which is a strong stock overall. This one didn't really, you know, it didn't move up to start like Netflix did up here. Instead of moved down in two pushes, took out some liquidity and started higher. So I attempted a trade here, and since it didn't follow through all that much, you know, I bought it at the mid blue line. I had to take a small gain here, and that's fine. This one, you know, I was uncertain how much higher it might go, but my bias was up and I wanted to give it a shot. Same thing with Tesla, where I just bought some calls here on this green bar and decided just to scale out and then take some small gains here, you know, as the morning comes to an end. So you had two very small gains on these stocks that were just taking out liquidity to the downside. You had nicer gains on the stocks that had momentum from the start to the upside, you know, CrowdStrike and Netflix. And then there was a QQQ trade I made with some puts. Once I saw it breaking down here, I had a feeling it would take out the low of the day. So I quickly jumped in and took advantage of a real quick trade to just buy it and then kind of exit into this liquidity down here. And then I'm not surprised it, you know, it bounced, but it's not really, you know, at this point going much higher either. So we're just kind of chopping around relative to the big picture and relative to the first bar here. We're not really way above it or below it, and we're certainly above the midpoint of the prior day. So the tone is still up, but you can see the volatility is tricky, you know, with the indexes at the moment. So anyway, just thought I'd kind of highlight what's going on here. I'm still biased to the upside, but, you know, you're really going to need possibly some, you know, downward price action here to create the 2 down, 2 up, you know, a better signal that unfolds, whether it's this week or sometime down the road, you know, to really get a little more comfortable trading the indexes. Other than that, you have to be aware that, you know, you're in a period, an exhaustion little period, which could lead to some sharp little liquidity grabs to the downside. And until this weekly chart really reverses and becomes negative, you know, I'm not going to look to the downside on these indexes because there's still targets above. So that's kind of a morning update here. Just thought I'd shoot this video. Interesting day, and that's why I think there's some mixed trading opportunities both up and down with this type of environment at the moment on the indexes.